How did it?
It's still like, it fits all right here. It's still like a little gappy here.
Okay, but better.
Yeah.
You're pleased?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Is everybody frozen? Are we there? Hi, guys. Hi, guys.
Oh,
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi, can y'all hear me just fine?
Yes.
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 Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, we're about to get started. If you guys would go ahead and mute your mic so that we don't get interference. But if you need to ask a question or unmute your mic, please join in the conversation, because we definitely do not want this to be a one-sided conversation and we talk all the time. We're here to help and do everything. Oh, I see some people. Hey, Natalie. I have not seen you in a while. It is so nice to see some faces that I recognize, and all of you that I don't recognize, I'm excited to see you tonight or this afternoon. Of course, I understand some of you are in different time zones and maybe morning for you guys. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, all of those things. We're going to go ahead and get started, and Mr. Lyon's going to open us up for just a minute.
well, we're trying to use two computers, but not. So we're working this technology thing here. Well, welcome. We're glad to have you back with us this week. Last week we talked about transformation. We covered the first 3 chapters. We talked about transformation and where it starts, and it starts with ourselves. And we talked about some barriers and some things to overcome. So I think we had some good conversations. I think we had a good kickoff. We had a wonderful, wonderful feedback from everybody. So we appreciate that very, very much. And then I guess we kind of finished up last week talking about vision and where we need to go and how to formulate that, and then working on the problem of practice. So I think Stephanie has a question for us to start with, and I'll put that in the chat box.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. He's going to type it in there just so that you can put it in the chat box or you can reflect on it. So I want you to be thinking right now, what can you identify with in your school to improve on next year? Not necessarily yourself, but something, a part of your campus that you see a need to improve upon. Go ahead and write that down or put it in the chat box for all of us to see. Is can you identify what you want to improve in your school? Very good. Seeing RTI, PLC, student growth, vertical alignment. Ooh, these are coming in so quickly.
A lot of win time and RTI.
Very good. Student growth, relationships, morale, discipline. Very good.
Good.
Well, we're going to try to touch on some of those and kind of make it all connect throughout this. But the first question, if you downloaded the questions from the Win Time Book Club here, I'm going to go over the first one, and I'm going to kind of keep this one short because I know where the majority of my time is going to be spent today. And so I just want to make sure that I devote that much time to the biggest question, which is how does win time look and how does that operate? Because I know that's your biggest area that you want me to touch on as well. So the first one is, how do you keep morale high through this transformational process? I'm going to tell you right now that morale is at jeopardy. Anytime you start to put the heat on things at your school, just know that discomfort is not an easy feeling. I know myself, when I start to feel a little discomfort, I might start to pull back a little bit. So, Ms. Shalane, I mean, what are some things that you do at our school to help us work through and keep morale high?
Well, from an administrative perspective, is communication is a must. And right now during our COVID outage and we're out doing distance learning, one thing, if you've gone to our website, one thing we've really tried to focus on is communication. I've even came outside my shell and done some videos in our new green room we built, but just trying to extend on the communication piece, because that will help. If people feel informed, they're going to feel a part, they're going to feel more engaged. And Stephanie put out a survey for a response from during this time, and we got a lot of positives about that, about how much we're communicating. So that's a big thing you can do. It's just you never can over communicate, so just do it often, and make sure that you're getting the word out, because especially in a time like this where people don't know what's going on, it's important that you keep them informed and keep them up to date.
Very good. Something that we did this year is created a mentoring program for our school district, and it is a little bit more than what it has ever been. As a principal, you always assign your first year teachers to a mentor, or even your second year teachers to a mentor, but this is a little bit beyond that. We were very intentional about creating this program where we assigned the teachers to a veteran teacher, but we had a little bit deeper meaning behind it. They also had to go and observe in the mentor's classroom. Their mentor also observed in their classroom and gave feedback, not to do your typical observation as like a supervisor would do, but just someone to collaborate with and to give them good feedback. Another thing we did is a coffee chat throughout the year. One day per month, we would get together and talk about that, and just come in, and we would have our coffee and a little bit of breakfast, but one of the teachers or all the teachers would get up and give them a little bit of information on certain topics. So like one topic would be classroom management, or the next one might be, technology in your classroom, things like that. So we would actually hear from them, and it is a very beneficial thing, and it could boost morale, because if you have new staff that's coming in during the transformational process or things like that, they're going to need a lot of support. They're going to need the behind the scenes things communicated to them that maybe they didn't hear because they weren't here the previous year. So kind of think about that. We also celebrate at board meetings each month. We bring in our students and our teachers each month and recognize them for all the good things that they're doing. We also use social media as a way to share what we're doing here at our school, and that really has been a big difference in our teachers. I just shared one last night on our Facebook page here of a teacher reading outside. And I don't know about you guys, but this time of the year right now, our Zoom attendance has dropped dramatically from the week 8 to week 1. And so our teachers sometimes are teaching to empty classrooms on Zoom. And so this was really a great way to spotlight her as she's sitting out there reading to an empty room, and to just let parents know that we're still teaching every day, regardless if they're there or not, but to give them that praise, to say, hopefully you will join her tomorrow to see her in her Zoom class tomorrow. And so she walked in the door today and gave me the biggest hug from a distance, of course, and just said that she really appreciated that shout out on social media. So it's the small things. You don't have to spend a lot of money on your teachers, but you have to just let them know how much you care. So the next question is for Mr. Lyon. It is over, what does Learner Center mean, and how do we help our teachers create that Learner Center school?
Well, I think it comes back to building systems to me. That's one of the things, if we, let me see if I can figure out how to share this. we may have to do my, oh, where's mine? One of the things that we try to do when we were doing learner-centered, remember for our vision, it was from, went from the, I'm trying to do talk and do stuff here at the same time. It went from the student to the superintendent. So, so we made sure that we tried to build systems that was going to involve that. And if you look on page 59 in the book on chapter 6, there was researching for the book. I was reading different things, and I really ran across an article that made a connection. It's kind of weird, I guess, in some instances to pull in the thoughts of a spider web. But there was an article that had about a Brazilian biologist who they were talking about the cognitive ability of spiders and how that they use their web as a system. And I thought that was interesting because it talks about the adaptation of the spider's web to be more useful by the spider by dropping threads of the web down to the floor or by stretching horizontal strands across a path to entrap insects, shows the adaptation to the environment. And I thought that was interesting because that's what we try to do when we do system design. When we try to build systems for students, we try to adapt to the environment so that we're able to make sure that we are building a system that is going to pick up those students and they're going to help lift the students up that need the support and making sure that we have systems in place. So we've done that through a few things. Like I said, I think we mentioned some of it last week through our content-based assessments. We've done it through PLCs. We've done it through our data folders and data meetings that we have. And then through, of course, our WIN time RTI system that we developed. So those are systems that we put in place. Our hawk walks and our things like that as well give time for our teachers to have reflection, to have time for our teachers to see the content, see the standards in use, and to go through and be able to have some good conversation and to reflect on the work that's being done. Because so many times I think we run into problems where we sit in a boardroom or we sit in a admin meeting and we make these conversations and we have conversations around the work, but we're not engaged in the work. So if we can get in an environment and create systems that allow us to be engaged in the work and have the standard on the wall, have an example of work, have a reflection about what the student has wrote about, and then have the teacher explain that, go through that process, then we can decide if there's a level of rigor is there, if the work is being done. If not, then in a team environment, we can work to say, okay, what's missing? What do we need to create? What do we need to do? How do we need to help? So those are things that we try to do when it comes to systems in order to help provide a support in a web so that all people can be successful and all learner-centered.
So there's a question for you. It says, what would be an expected timeline for putting structures and systems in place to create this learner-centered school?
Well, in our course that we've developed, we've got some templates and stuff that we've done in our discovering your instructional vision or transforming your schools. And basically, we kind of went through, it was a 3-year process to set some of these things up. Just like Stephanie said earlier, you've got to keep the morale up. You've got to kind of check the gauge of your teachers and where they're at. And sometimes in some environments, if you've already been doing work, you might be able to move a little faster. If it's brand new, then you're going to have to gain that buy-in and gain that trust and invest some time in that. So we came in the first year, we went back to our standards to make sure our teachers understood that. Year 2, we came in and put in the RTI and instructional rounds, and then came back in year 3 and we did PLCs, I guess, year 2 as well. And in year 3, we came in and put in the hawk walk piece that was kind of the full component. So, it's not something that can be done overnight. You can make great strides quickly, but it's something that takes some time to put it all together.
Are you able to share that?
I'm working on it. Let me see if we can.
He's going to try to share this PowerPoint, which you're going to get a link to, and so that you can see all the aspects of it. It's a PowerPoint that Boris and I use to go and present at conferences and stuff. And so he is also going to share some other things with you today as I start to talk about WIN time. So he's grabbing the link real quick.
This first one.
Mhm.
Okay.
So this link that he's sharing right now, you can open it in another tab, and it's you'll see that is our PowerPoint. But we're going to try to share our screen real quick if it all works. Sometimes we're having trouble with Zoom. I don't know if you are, but we have been lately. So this is what he was talking about, all the learner center processes. You are seeing that, correct? Yes. Lauren, I can see you. Are you seeing it? Screen. Okay.
Yes.
So our, like you said, we created content-based assessments. We had data rooms, data folders, all of those things. PLCs was the second thing that we did. And then we started a WIN time system my very first year here. Something I want to point out is that when we talk about data, the thing that I say the most, this is the quote you will always hear me say, is data remains data until it's acted upon in intentional ways. I think my teachers probably know this by heart because I say it so much. If you're going to collect that data and you're not going to do anything with it, then there's no purpose in using the data. There's no purpose in you making the students go through the assessment if you're not going to do anything with it. One of the biggest things we did was build a common understanding of what grade instruction is. And I want to share an activity with you that I did back when I first came. And I put our teachers in groups, and I gave each group strips of paper. And on each strip of paper, I asked them to write down what is grade instruction to you. And so they listed all those things. And then as we came together as a whole group, we would name those things out and find the things that each group had in common. And so when we did that, we come up with a campus-wide understanding of what we were all expected inside the classroom. Because I'm going to tell you, if we have 350 people on this Zoom right now, everybody's understanding of what grade instruction may look different to each one of us. And we may have things that are common, but we're going to have some things that are differences. But what we need to do is agree upon those commonalities and then put those things in place so that we all have a understanding of that. So if you haven't done that, or if you're thinking of something, I would say go ahead and do that. Another thing is that we had to start changing our teachers' practices to reflect all of these principles that we have in place. So what a grade instruction looks like, or how the RTI system works, we had to change all of those things. And then the last thing is, as a principal, you need to protect instructional time. I can tell you that I've been in several schools where you see that hear announcements all day long, and then people in and out of the classroom. You've just got to protect the teachers and their time that's valuable. Every time you interrupt that classroom, you've got to get the students back on task. So think about those things. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I do know that this is where the majority of my time is probably going to be spent is on our WIN time. And one of the things that we had to start off by doing is talk about what the expectations of WIN is and what it's not. I had to go over this with my teachers and explain that WIN time is not a time for you to finish work, grade papers, have students stay busy at their desk. It is small group, direct teach with the students right in front of them or working alongside of them. And I have to tell you that sometimes if you're starting this process and your teachers are used to whole group teaching and that's all they know, that you may have to teach them how to teach in small group because they may not know what that looks like and how that's supposed to function in the classroom. We also had to talk about resources, what's available to our teachers, what's available to our students to use during this time. Our lesson plans are all shared, so interventionists can see what the classroom teachers are working on and support the classroom teachers. And another thing that we have is we never cancel WIN. The minute you start canceling it, it gets easier to cancel every other time after that. And it also shows what's important to you. If you start to cancel it, then you start to show that there's not a need for it or it's not that important. So they're going to model your own behavior. So just make sure that you don't cancel it unless it's absolutely necessary. I can't move it.
Okay, whoops, sorry.
Okay, so this is my campus schedule. And I want you to draw your eyes to all the bright green boxes. This is WIN time and the master schedule. So if you look at, I don't know, let's just go to second grade. And it is from 1 o'clock to 1:30, and then again at 1:30 to 2 o'clock. I'll always make WIN time 2 back-to-back 30-minute times. The only time that is not that same system is in kindergarten. They only have 1 30-minute time. And just because we have a limited amount of time on our campus, and so 30 minutes is all kindergarten could put into the master schedule. Sixth grade also does not have a complete hour because they function actually on the middle school, high school schedule. And so that is the reason that they're like that. But everybody else is 2 30-minute times. The reason being is because you may have this too. A student may not be, may be low in both subjects, reading and math. And so we do not have to have that decision to make on what subjects they're going to get this in. So if you can see at the top of the screen, these are the courses that we have available during WIN time. We have 3 classroom teachers per grade level, but I'm going to tell you this system works regardless of your campus size. If you read the book, you understand that my last district, we had 10 teachers in a grade level. It works for that as well. This district, I have 3, and it works. So what our teachers are doing, we have 3 classroom teachers. I have a Read Naturally program. I do not push programs, but I'm going to tell you, if you haven't heard of Read Naturally, I want you to look at it. It's worth the time to look into. It is one that will help our students to read and then also comprehend as well. We also have Gifted and Talented. We have 2 computer labs, which is, I know, very rare, but we had 2 computer labs when we came, and we're still using those. I do have to tell you that there is a possibility that as these computers age, that those computer labs may change into hopefully a STEM classroom or something like that, that we can transform that room. We have special education, math intervention, and then we have our dyslexia reading. And the difference in the 2 reading programs is one is Read Naturally, and the other one is an actual dyslexia program that we use by our service center. So, okay.
We have some questions. Do your teachers team teach?
So the students are divided out, and they will go to any of these sections. The teachers in those grade levels, they can share students inside that grade level, or they can keep their own students. So if you're self-contained, they're typically keeping their own, but I have started seeing the teachers starting to share students. So a first grade teacher may say, I only have a couple of students in this group. Could I have a couple of yours, and maybe you can take this other group? That is the process that this campus has started to move towards, from a very closed door campus to now actually everybody collaborating and sharing students. So that has been a transformational process as well. So encourage that when they start to place the students in there. Now, when you get it to the upper elementary, they're departmentalized. So one of the students, say if you're 5th grade, she will serve the 5th grade students in reading, or the other teacher will serve them in math or science or whatever it may be.
It says, what does WIN work, or how does WIN work if you are not departmentalized?
Same way, they are all still going. So a first grade teacher, they will keep some of their students or share students from the other 2 first grade classrooms, and then the other ones will go out to their spaces. The students carry index cards with them if they're the lower elementary or they have just changed grouping, so that they understand where to go on their second rotation, because they can get them there their first rotation, but where do I go my second rotation? And this is all going to make sense in just a few minutes. I know I'm answering some questions. I do want to point out that when you get this master schedule, because you will get a copy of it, that if you notice down at the bottom, all the tabs on the Excel spreadsheet, because you're going to want to utilize those as well.
You want to go ahead or you want to answer some more questions?
Somebody's saying what is on the index card? All it is, so if they say the first one says I go to read naturally first, the second one may say I go to math intervention. So it just tells them where to go next.
And win time occurs every day. And what she was saying earlier about they don't cancel it. I mean, I came up here right before Christmas break one year, and she was storming out of the office, and I said, "Oh my goodness, what's going on?" And in the nicest way, I mean, they're making snowflakes in the computer lab, and it's win time, and
No.
I can't deal with that. So she was very polite, but she has to remind sometimes that it is about students' outcomes, and it's about improving student outcomes, and it's not about making snowflakes. And so right up to the time, if there's an early release, she goes right up to that time. I mean, it's not compromised. It's precious time, and they use it.
Okay, so yes, win time is every single day, unless maybe we release early, then we work up until that time. So if we release at 1 o'clock for early release, anything prior to 1 o'clock, we still continue with win time. This is in addition to their already coursework. We created this, or I came up with this plan several years ago as I saw a need where our students that were getting pulled out from class were missing their core instruction, then having to return back to class to try to get caught back up. And what did that do? That just created more gaps that we were trying to fill. And then it also created more frustration on our students and our teachers because the students were missing class. So our students do not ever have to worry about that. When they leave, they have not missed instruction because their core subject stopped instruction during that time.
The next one.
Yeah, I think so. So who is all students campus-wide are either in an enrichment classroom or they go to intervention. Now, our teachers can serve enrichment or intervention. It doesn't have to be all intervention during this time. I want you to understand that you look at your students' data and determine who's going to teach what based off of this information. Groups change as a general rule every 6 weeks, sometimes up to 9. We progress monitor every 3rd week. So that means we teach 2 solid weeks. On that 3rd week, we will progress monitor. What we use to progress monitor is STAR Renaissance, reading and math. And so that has been our data checkpoints. We want to make sure that our students are sustaining that growth before we change them. Just because you look at the data and you have determined that they have grown, what if you determined that you move them and that they fall back? You want to make sure that you're making a wise decision, and just because they made it once, sometimes keep them in there a couple more weeks before you move them, just to make sure they can sustain that. Some students that are very low in reading or significantly low, maybe multiple years below in math, can get double blocked in both of those subjects. So if you're double blocked in reading, you could stay with your reading teacher, your homeroom teacher for reading, and then go to the Read Naturally program or go to the reading intervention classroom. Same thing for math. I'm multiple years below in math, then I'm going to do math with my homeroom teacher and maybe math in the math intervention lab, whatever it may be. So just think of those possibilities that you can double block students that are significantly below grade level. For the students that are in special ed, I failed to mention this, that we have made it into their IEPs, that's when they get their time in there. And so as we work through ARDS, we made sure that to include that as part of the rotation.
So-
Now, okay.
And give her a chance to breathe. And there's questions about one teacher or 10 teachers, and this model, as she said, it can scale up or down. It's all proportionate to the amount of kids you have, so you can scale it up and down. There's questions about in a 6 to 8 environment, and I think it could be used there too, especially if you have some double blocks and things like that. One things we're looking at in our high school is doing a 0 hour and trying to incorporate win time into like a 0 period in the morning. So that's something that we're looking at there too. So all those things, but like she said, SPED, everything, you get your time in during that time, and then they're not missing that core instructional time. If they're in there, the more we can have them in the classroom listening to the core content and the core instruction, then the more likely that the gaps will close and student outcomes will improve.
Okay.
Go to the next slide.
Yeah, we do have data meetings every 9 weeks for a very large mass of changes, and that may look like our teachers are all in one in the conference room, and they come in during their conference time, and we start to pull data with the interventionist, and we have our data reports and determine where's the best placement for all those. So conversations are happening. I have to tell you, you need to make sure that your teachers are sitting at the decision-making table. It's not, I make sure that the interventionists do not have all control over who goes where, that the classroom teachers are also putting that, their input into that. This is just a picture of us doing vertical teaming this year. It doesn't have anything to do about WIN. It was just part of our presentation, but this is just our teachers coming in and presenting lessons of what they're doing in their classrooms, but also talking about what are the most essential things that one grade level needs to have for the next grade level. So a first grade teacher came in and had a conversation with kindergarten and said, this is what your kindergarten students must know entering our first grade classroom. So those are the things that are
Share or keep going?
No, keep going. There's some more to it. Keep going. Okay, so this is how we track our data, is just through a Google spreadsheet. And so if you see all the numbers over to the side, I know that the gray box is there to block all of our students' names. But if you see the data there, that is every time that student has been progress monitored. So if you see the first one, 3.6, 3.6, 3.3, 3.4, that is every time that student was progress monitored in reading. And the next column is progress monitored in math. Then all the other columns we look at is all their benchmarks or CBAs and STAR data. All of that stuff is in there. Now for us, since we have been doing this going on 3 years, we have actually 3 years data in here. It's just all the way down at the end of the report. So we can go back for a student that is in 4th grade and look at their 3rd grade data and 2nd grade data, all because we constantly keep that in there. Now, the people that help me put this data in are just my computer lab aides. They're in there and they have a little bit more time on their hands. So they know when we progress monitor because we have a calendar that shows them, and all they do is just run the reports and enter that information in there. So we use this on our data days and determine our students making growth. So some of you, your questions were, I want to make sure our students are making growth, or that's something you want to focus on. Well, think about how you can house your information so that you can see that in an easy way. Google has been a big help for us. So all I do now this year, since this was a 3rd or 4th grade classroom, is rename it now and say it's a 5th grade classroom, and these are our 5th grade students here. So that's all I have to do, and it's reshared out with the campus. I think I have. Okay, so one of the best interventions is having students know their own data, and that is on page 87 of the book. It is one of the most powerful tools you could ever do. is have your age-appropriate students start to monitor their data. Even I said age-appropriate, but I also mean that our kindergarten students and first grade students are starting to track their own data. Now, that was before we went to, on school closure and everything, but we were in the process of all of that and teaching our kindergartners how to identify their alphabet and to circle the ones that they know, and the ones that they don't, we would have those conversations with them. So we have two ways of doing it. That we can track it digital, or we can have our students do a folder and track it. Now, inside the folder is we use DMAC as our data reporting platform. Is that what you would call it?
Right.
And so we would run the reports, and our students and our teachers would work with our students individually or in a very small group, and they would graph their own data. Now, we can graph it by overall performance of that assessment, or we can graph it by our standard, which for Texas, where we do the TEKS. And so we could graph that. And our teachers even have graphs around the hallways too, where they're graphing as a classroom their overall performance on different standards. And so they use this information to then determine, okay, I need to change my instruction. Obviously, my students don't know well enough 3.2a in math, so we need to reteach that. And so then that comes into play in the classroom. It can come into play in whole group or small group or during WIN time. And it can also come into play with our students having their own, go ahead, our own, the next one, their own study plans. So our students then get study plans, and we place these little strips of paper inside manila folders. We don't go to a lot of trouble making it all cute and everything. All this is our state standards. And our students then create a study plan based or identifying the ones that are weak. And we have conversations with them to tell them, okay, this is the area that I see that you're struggling in. And then also our upper grade students can identify their own and have those conversations with the teachers individually or in small group. And then we assign them some learning on Education Galaxy or iExcel to build those specific skills. And then also we address those skills individually or in small group during WIN time. So we are building a personalized learning plan for each one of our students. And we really focus on reading and math, but our science teachers also do this as well. But those are the biggest subjects that we really focus on in our campus. They also come up when they have met all of their goals and their study plan for that time, and they get to ring the bell, they get a prize from me, and we make a huge deal out of it. I post their pictures on social media if I'm allowed to, by the parents, all those things. So this is very powerful of a tool because we're building personalized learning plans for our students.
Next.
I think that might be it.
Okay, so I'll stop sharing.
So what questions, let me look through your questions real quick and kind of see what you may be having with WIN time, because that's pretty much how that looks on our campus. I do have to tell you that WIN time is a local thing, so that you can tweak this. I want you to fit this to make it fit for your campus or what you have available. You may not have 2 computer labs. That's fine. I didn't have 2 computer labs at my last campus. But you have to find out what works for you, find your resources, all of your people, and line them up and say, okay, this is what you're going to teach during this time. And so it has just worked for us. This is a system that we've kind of come up with, but do what works for you.
There were some questions about what do I do if I don't have the interventionists or the computer labs? What are some suggestions for that?
You can still do WIN with just your teachers and maybe even some aides. Some of our aides are involved in this. The aides are in computer labs, or the aides do Read Naturally program. So you figure out where your personnel is and try to make that work. But the biggest thing is you have to do small group instruction during this time. And one of the things you have to do is make sure that your teachers understand what that is. I want to ask you to turn to page 82 for just a minute. 82, if you have your book.
I'm posting the schedule in the link in the chat box.
Okay, he's posting the schedule, my campus schedule, in the chat box, so you can grab that too. So on the 3 questions, when you're building your win time, I want you to make sure that you talk about these 3 things, or you focus on them. Is, do your teachers know how and what to do during small group instruction? You have to talk to them about what you can do and what you cannot do. You have to tell them your expectations. If you don't, they're going to make snowflakes. I'm going to tell you, they're going to make snowflakes, and you're not going to be happy about it. So sometimes you're going to have to revisit that. Number 2 is, can your teachers analyze the data to determine the best interventions and take immediate and swift actions? That is something that we had to learn, because if you start to create that, disaggregate all of their data for them, then they're not going to learn anything from that, and they're not going to run it on their own. When we come to data day, they have to bring their data with them. And so they always come in and say, okay, this is the decisions I want to make based off of this data. And they can talk about it, and they know the students very well based off of that. Do your teachers know the expectations of win time and what win time is and what it's not? Of course, that's kind of back to what I said on number 1. So it says, do you have the personalized learning plans in your TPT stored? No, it is actually in the online course. Mr. Lyon could put that also in the chat box as well. So if you want to get to that, but it is all editable. So if you're not from Texas, you can change that as well. Let me see.
I was trying to find, there were some questions about where the Zoom was going to be maybe last week's and then this week. So
Yes.
I was trying to find.
Right here. Okay. And so grab that link right there. So the recording will be on the link that he's putting up right here, and it will stay there until, I guess, we do another book study, and then we'll update that. So our next question, unless we have some more. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kelly. Kelly is saying, thank you for sharing your resources. Absolutely.
I had a question about hot walks. Hot walks were what I was explaining earlier about building systems. So in essence, what the reason for that is we focus on our standard. That's what we tried to go back to the foundation. So the teacher will post a standard. In that standard, it's asking about what is it asking for the student to do? What task is the standard asking the student to do? So they have to identify that and then provide a task that they would put in the hallway to display that would exemplify the standard. And we don't want it to be a science fair project, a dog and pony show, or anything like that. We want authentic work that can be posted in the hallway. And then the final step is then the student has to write a reflection about it and about what they learned through the process. And in Texas, they're starting to go where we're going to have to write in math, we're going to have to write in writing, and we're going to have to write in science and all those things with our assessments, state assessments. So we already have gone through that struggle, that productive struggle there, to try to get teachers and students to write in math and to write in different content areas. And that was a struggle at first, but through that, a lot of our math teachers have even said, now that the student is writing it down in a reflection, I can see a step that maybe they missed, and I can then help them to identify where they're going wrong. So Hogwalks has just been a system that we put in place. You can use it in PLCs. You can take teachers around at different grade levels. You can see what the work, they have to present different levels of work. A lot of the elementary teachers post everybody's, but we want to have no names, of course, but we want a GT student, maybe a SPED student. We just want a good cross-reference of students so we can then look to see how all learners are learning and then what did the task meet the rigor of the standard? Is it, what did we see in the reflection? How was that all tied in? So it's just what I mentioned earlier. It's example for you to have a reflection and conversations around the work that's going on, rather than sitting in a room and talking about what you need to do. You have artifacts to work with. So it's been helpful for us.
I'm reading some of the questions. How often do we do hawk walks? Is every 4 weeks. And so they will be posted. They know a calendar. We give them a calendar and they have to post it by a Friday afternoon, because the hawk walk will be the Monday. And so they have it posted up, and then after the hawk walk is over, they can take it down if they want to. Most of them might leave it up there for several days. But somebody also said that they're focused on writing for their campus goal. And that is something that we have actually seen a huge improvement on in our campus just by hawk walks. Oh, you were going to say something?
Yeah, in the in the lower grades, we use sentence stems or anything just to get them to write. And just so those of you aren't familiar, we're from Hawkins, and our mascot are the Hawks. So we hawk walks. That's for, anyway, I don't know if anybody might wonder why we were calling it that, but that's just our mascot name.
So you can name it whatever you want to name it. Somebody asked me how we do WIN time, kind of going back to WIN for just a minute, how you do WIN if you had like 8 teachers in a grade level. Remember in my last district, I had 10 in a grade level. You divide your 10 or you divide your 8 up into 2 groups. And so their WIN time will be a different time of the day. So and in my previous school, it was only 45 minutes. Or 30 minutes. I think it was 30. So we only had one 30-minute time because it was a very large campus of almost 650 students. So it was very difficult to find 2 30-minute back-to-back times. So we had 30 minutes. And so if I had 10 teachers in a grade level, I only have 5 off for WIN time at a time. And then the next 5 would have their 30 minutes of time. So we could utilize all the people. Do I have the master schedule? I'd have to look at my back at my flash drives back from back then, if I even still have those. I remember my computer crashing back then, so I lost some of my stuff, but it wouldn't be hard for me to recreate that schedule for you. Let's see, what do you do with interventionists at this time? Are they pulling in the classroom or pullouts? We have pullout. So the students go to the intervention rooms, and then the rest of the students stay in their designated classrooms. So a classroom teacher may have 5, 6, 7 students or less, and then the interventionist may have, up to 5 students each. It just depends, and the rest of them would go to the computer labs too. Oh, somebody says they appreciate this. Awesome. Very good. I love the feedback. Okay, so I guess we'll go on to the next question, but we can clarify anything if you have any questions that come up. So the next one is through self-reflection, examine if you may have any aspects of your transformation of your own leadership skills. So I do know that over the years, I guess, however many years I've been doing this, that I know that I have gained a little bit more confidence over the years, less self-doubting. And I think it's just because you've learned so much and you can rely on the skills that you have done. I do have to tell you that it is your internal skills that will produce the most results, not your external skills, like how well you can do something external, but it's what's inside of you. So your passion, your drive, your determination, all those things, if you can develop those, then you will be a more effective leader. So on page 52, if you'll turn to that, if you have it for just a second, I just want to read something I wrote to you is about my goal. My goal in the very last paragraph, my goal, and I'm sure it is yours too, is to lead with purpose. Leading with purpose and the right vision identifies a great leader and is a predictor of goals being attained. I have to tell you that schools that are purpose-driven are winning. I know that we want to lead with purpose because every decision is being made that is intentional and well orchestrated, and it is really would make your school improve greatly. So it all comes back to us as a leader. If we want our school to be very well and to exceed our expectations, we have to be the best people that we can be. And just know that it's not always what's on the outside, it's what's in the inside of us that really counts the most.
Yeah, last week I mentioned something about Strengths Finder. I think that I use to help identify some of the strengths that I have personally, and to try to build on those. There's also, if you ever heard of 360 reviews, I think I mentioned that in the chapter in the book as well. It's an exercise where I would give an evaluation to my principals, and they would critique me on how I do my leadership skills, or how I perceive myself, and so forth. So that's kind of enlightening too, to get that feedback from those around you, because how you perceive yourself to be may not be how you're actually leading. So to have that good feedback from your team is very good for some self-reflection. We talked about the transformation begins with yourself. So you have to really understand where you're at and where you're centered. And so that's we've done that. We try to do that with ourselves. We've done that with building systems to reflect upon our work. And in our leadership course too, there is a value exercise. So you can use it for yourself to identify your value set, or you can give it to your staff members, where you go through and you identify what core values are most important to you, what's most important to your staff. There's also some exercises in there about determining some things that your staff member, your team is made up of. Why, what skills and what self leadership skills do you have as a leader, but how is your team made up? And then, so how do we understand our working together? I think those are things you have to reflect on, and then you'll be a stronger team going forward to try to meet your goals.
Now, somebody's asking about, do you have a copy of that survey? But that was something that you purchased, right?
Yeah, I
StrengthsFinders?
will see if I can find it before next week and share it. It was a course that I went through, and it was a 360 review. I'll see if I can go back in my notes and find that. I'll make a note of it.
Okay. Do students chart their own data during WIN time? If not, when does that occur? That only occurs with a classroom teacher in a small group or whole group, if they're the older students, and maybe shields to protect their data, things like that for confidentiality. But most of the time it's in a very small group with teachers having side conversations with the students and working through that. It can definitely happen during WIN time, but typically it will happen during WIN time with a classroom teacher, not the interventionist. And then somebody asked me about the computer lab, and the students in the computer lab, they're working, they take their study plan with them to the computer lab, and it is already assigned what they're to get on to work on those specific things that are circled on their study plan. So everything is identified on there, and so when they go to intervention or whatever like that, everything is specific to their study plan at that time, and that study plan can change, but our students are also carrying their study plans with them as well.
Renee says that she attended one of our finding your instructional vision, and it really helped. Thank you for that. We made that course. We did some live face-to-face, but we made it all. That link I shared earlier is an online course that we made now during this time. I'll share that link again.
Okay. All right. So the last question is, what is the cost of not transforming our own leadership skills?
Well, I mean, we said earlier, again, we're the center of transformation. So if we're not centered ourselves, then we're not going to be able to transform our school well. I think that there's a video. I was going to try to show it, but we're getting close to time. But you've got to decide what your drive and what like you said earlier, your purpose, and where you're at in this course that I have that we've put together. There is I'm actually going to a vision workshop in Austin, and there's a guy driving down the interstate, and it's pouring down rain, and I go past him and I see what he's doing. He has his arm out the window. He's broken his windshield wiper off. He's got his windshield wiper, and he's got his hand out there and he's wiping his windshield, and it's pouring down rain, and he's driving down I-35. And I thought, this guy's crazy. I got to get a picture of this. It's going to be funny. And I did, and I filmed it. And as I reflect back on it, that guy's purpose may have been, he may have been the only breadwinner in the house. He may have had sick family members. He may have been providing the only, making sure that there's a meal on the table for his family. And he had a purpose, and he had a vision, and he had a direction he was going. And if only that we as leaders are committed enough to go out in the pouring rain, break your windshield wiper off, try to make sure your windshield's clear so you can get to work and you can be purposeful in your life, and to make a difference to kids, or provide for your family, or whatever your purpose and what your value is, then the world would be a whole lot better place. And that was just a powerful. I was kind of making fun of it at first, but as I began to reflect on it, it was just, it hit me and made a powerful connection. So that's something we all have to make sure that we do. If we can all be centered in that, then transformation is going to just go through the roof. I mean, it's going to be exciting. I'm sorry, I get excited about that.
Yeah, somebody said that they keep Austin weird. Very good. We love Austin. So I want to add that effective leadership is the key to really improving academic achievement and attaining that lasting change. It all begins with us, guys. No matter what kind of leader you are, if you're just starting out, or you're a veteran leader, or you're a superintendent, or whatever you may be in this room right now, it is very important that this falls at your lap right now, because you're here for a reason. You're joining this Zoom for a very specific reason. It might be that you were told to be here. Hopefully not. Hopefully that you want to be here. And if that's the case, I know that you're here to make a change for this next year. Now, for us, we have no idea what next year is going to bring because of this COVID situation. And I know you guys are living in this uncertainty as well as we are. And we're trying to figure this out. But I do know that next year is one of the most important and crucial times that we do get a game plan in place, because our students are coming in with at least 15 weeks of no instruction other than their home-based instruction. And some of them, and you may be in this situation too, that are not doing what they need to be doing at home because of other factors that are in play. But we've got to come in next year with a game plan to address all of these gaps. And I know you're in that situation as well as I am.
Yeah, we're building, we've set up a committee. We identified 5 different kind of lanes that we're focusing on. And we're going through this system building right now and trying to tweak what we have to understand how we can deliver that in a better way and under this environment, if we should come into that this next year. We're getting out of time, but to kind of close this a little bit, one of the things that Stephanie and I wanted to do through this book study is we wanted to help push you toward coming out with an end product. So last week when we ended, we talked about a problem of practice, and we kind of introduced that. Today at the opening, we ask you, can you identify what you want to improve in your school? So here's your homework assignment for next week before we come back. So what we want you to do, if you look at the end of each chapter, you have the problem of practice in there, and you'll see there's a narrative under each one of them, because you as a leader have to develop your vision. You have to understand, then you have to get buy-in. So we want you to come up with your narrative on what you wrote in the chat box, or if you don't have anything yet, you need to get something to decide on, and then write that narrative. Go back. We've talked a lot about data today. We've talked about how to use data and make an action plan. So, identify what you want to do. Write your narrative out about how you're going to do that, kind of like we did in the problem of practice, what that looks like, what that surrounds around. Have you some data points in there to support your argument that you could present to your visioning team in order for you to sell this. So that's your homework for this next week, is to be able to provide that narrative for next week. And then we come back, we'll talk a little bit next week in our last time about how to develop the questions to go in there with it. So you'll have something to have an end product, hopefully, that you can move forward for a problem of practice for your new school year.
I'm going to share something with you real quick, so don't leave. I want you to see something real quick. Can you go to my website? I'm going to show you the fastest way to always find everything, okay? So if you go to, sorry, this
Go back.
yeah, my website. Okay, so you're on my website. Go up to the top, please. And you see all the tabs at the top. If you see the new book that says Win Time, that will be where you can see all the recordings of everything and get anything you might need. Also back over, yes, right there. So you can find the book study handouts, or you can find the recordings as well. So that's on there. And then the online course is right there. It says my courses. I have two of them. The leadership one and the Transform Your School is the one we're talking about right now. And it is there, so you can go to that course, and that's where the study plans are and other things that you might want to do. So that is packed full of stuff. I think, was there any other stuff that you might need? The only other thing that's not on any of this is my schedule, which I shared with you inside this stuff. But you get every single thing inside this leadership course that we typically do in person. It is now all digital, so you can listen to my Texas country accent as much as you want to. Okay. Any questions, guys? Yeah, you can stop sharing. Yes, last week's Zoom is there. Okay. Well, next week, we're looking forward to that. We'll be on next Tuesday at 4 o'clock as well. I hope this time works out for you guys. And we will be back up. Thank you for all the wonderful comments. Thank you. Thank you so much. I enjoy this. Bye.
See you next week.
Thank you, Stephanie.
How are you doing? Are you sitting
Good.
in the car?
I couldn't get out of my last meeting, so I literally ran to my car and just sat here. So I came in late, so I got to watch it again.
Okay.
It's good to see you.
Well, good to see you too. Bye.
Bye.
Hey, Stephanie.
Yes.
I purchased your course, and our school improvement team is actually doing this book study right now.
Okay.
And for the last Zoom meeting, I purchased the course. Is there a way that you would suggest where, because there's 5 people on the school improvement team, I just in looking through it, is there an easy way to do that, or do you all kind of have to be in the same place at the same time to do it?
It is designed for you to do individually, or you can all get in the same room and work on it together and just pace through it. It's totally whatever y'all want to do.
Okay, so in purchasing that one course, we can all I assume we just all each log into it then?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
It's broken into sections, so you can kind of look at it and disseminate it. I mean, kind of break it down into sections. I think there's 5 different sections in there, so you can scroll through and decide, you know, what may be most important or what you may need to focus on depending on your needs.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Megan, if you can hear me, it says where can you find the transformation course? Go to my website and go up to the top, and it says my courses, and there's 2 on the drop down. And
so when I clicked on it, it doesn't show the transformation one.
okay, let me go
And
back.
then I clicked on the other side, and it said that link was broken. But maybe I'm not clicking on the right spot.
I'm not sharing.
Okay.
Let's see. Here's where I went. Transform Your School.
I was going to say that I tried to purchase it as well last week, and I found the same thing. I typed the link, and it says that it was broken too.
Okay, hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. So on the course, it says Transform Your School. So the link inside of the page that I'm sending you to, you're saying it's broken?
Yes, ma'am. When you click on it, it just takes you to your courses, but that course is not. So I clicked on purchase online, and I don't see that course then.
Okay, here, let me share this
There it
link
is
with
right
you, okay? Okay, let me put it in there to everyone. Okay, so this is where both of the courses are. Let's see if I can share my screen so you can see it. Yeah, there it is. So it's right here that I took you to. So it went from principles, and then it took you to that other page, and then it takes you to my courses. And so you see both of those courses here.
So is it the instructional vision?
Yes, this is the one, the Discover Your Instructional Vision is the transformational. We're renaming and rebranding that because
Okay, that's what I was confused on.
yes, it's not all about visioning, and so there's so much packed into that we're changing the name, but we haven't rebranded it all because I have like no time right now, but it is the same course. And
Okay.
then somebody asked about a course for new people, new administrators. It would definitely be the leadership course for that. So if you're new, that would be one. But if you're wanting to transform your campus or your district, then the vision one is the one you need for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else, guys?
Thank you.
You're
Appreciate it.
welcome.
Have a good afternoon.
Thank you. You too, guys. Thank you, Kara. Bye, guys.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Mhm.